there, thank you so much for joining me today. As a permanent resident of Canada, there are certain requirements and conditions that must be met in order to maintain that permanent residency status. The most important aspect of a permanent residency status is the residency obligation. As a permanent resident of Canada, you should reside within Canada for a majority, if not all of the time. Therefore, in this video, I will be explaining the residency obligations for permanent residents in Canada. Particularly as a permanent resident of Canada, you must ensure that you have resided within Canada for a minimum of 2 years within a 5-year time period. Specifically, during the 2-year time frame, you must be physically present within Canada. However, there are certain circumstances that actually can count towards your residency obligation that may not have you living within Canada. So to explain a little bit further, if you are currently within Canada, you must have been living within Canada for a minimum of 2 years out of the 5-year time frame. However, if you are living outside of Canada, you must either be accompanying a spouse or common law partner that is a Canadian citizen, you must either be a child accompanying a parent, you must either be employed full-time by a Canadian employer or the Public Service of Canada, or lastly, you must be accompanying a Canadian permanent resident who is employed by a Canadian employer or Public Service of Canada as the employee's spouse, common law partner, or dependent child. Therefore, if you do not abide by these requirements and conditions, you do have the possibility of losing your permanent residency status in Canada. Additionally, it is important to note that if you are a permanent resident of Canada that has been living in Canada less than 5 years, it is mandatory for you to have an intent of staying within Canada for a minimum of 2 years in order to meet your residency obligation. So you may be wondering, what happens if my residency is not met? If this is the case, there may be unexpected consequences that can result from not meeting your residency obligations. For instance, if you are a permanent resident of Canada and have not met your residency obligations and you're currently residing within Canada, an immigration officer can actually issue you a removal order. The removal order, unfortunately, would force you to leave Canada. On the other hand, if a permanent resident of Canada is currently residing outside of Canada and they have not met their residency obligations, the immigration officer can tell them that they have lost their permanent residency status within Canada and they are not allowed to return. They would need proper authorization to return to Canada. This would be the worst case scenario. However, if a permanent resident of Canada loses their permanent residency status, they can appeal within 60 days of receiving this notification. If they proceed with the appeal, the immigration officer can look at the entire application and assess it with humanitarian and compassionate consideration prior to making a final decision of the permanent residency status of this individual. As a permanent resident of Canada, it is essential that you meet your residency obligation. If not, there is a potential of losing your permanent residency status. Here at Akrami & Associates, we have dealt with many different immigration matters and we have helped many of our clients renew their permanent residency status within Canada. If you feel like you would need assistance with renewing your permanent residency card, please feel free to contact us. With Akrami & Associates, there's always a way.